Hello.
Hey Greg, hi
Hey
Benjamin,
everyone.
Jason.
Hello everyone. How is everything going out there? All good?
Oh, good man. How are you?
I mean, good too. Monday is not easy with kids and so on, but I can't complain. So yeah.
Uh,
Hey Julian.
Hello there. How goes?
Let's see if we have more people connecting today. How is the weather today in New York, Julian? I see a sunny day in your windows. Is that right?
Yeah, more than usual. I would be happier, except we had maybe 2 or 3 days of 18 or 19 degrees, and now it's down to 14 or 15. So, okay, yeah. It's not quite summer, but it's spring.
Mm.
We'll go to the park probably after this.
Hello.
Hey Juan. Hey Ben.
Hey,
Hey
how's it
Vivek.
going?
Well, good. We were speaking about the weather in New York, that it seems a bit sunny today, but cold.
Not a bad combination.
No, it could be worse. Yeah, it could be worse.
Wait, I'm going to start sharing my screen to see if we have more people joining in the last minute. And let's see what we have in the agenda for today. We are still on time to add more topics. So if someone in the room had something in mind, this is the time. So you can add a comment in the chat, edit the issue, or add a comment in the issue. So up to you. I'm going to share the link here in the Zoom chat. That one.
Ben, there's also a comment lower down on that issue. I'm not
Okay.
sure. But they mentioned that he mentioned that he's not going to be here for this meeting because he's traveling. But yeah, I don't know. I think we need some more explanation from him on what he's getting at on that.
Interesting topic, by the way. But if he's not here, I know that Ben has been exchanging some emails with Ege. So yeah, let's see. Let's start from the beginning. So shall we get started? Okay. Let's start reviewing together the meeting etiquette as we always do. We are going to record this meeting to share it with the community and also in our YouTube channel. But if someone in the room is against sharing this publicly, just let me know and I'll take care of not uploading this one. Otherwise, this will be online tomorrow. We encourage everyone to challenge any language or behavior that is harmful, not inclusive, or against our code of conduct. We'll try to stay on mute when other people is speaking and use the Zoom reaction for us to speak. And this is what we have for today. Just one single topic that was added by Ben past week, but we decided to postpone it for today. But before starting with this one, let's take a look together to what we discussed the past week. Last week, we had 3 topics. The first one, the GitHub discussion 67. This seems like a very old one. And we didn't discuss this one because it seemed like someone added the label agenda by mistake. So there was no pending comment. It's like open or in this status since 2021. So it seemed like a unintentional change. So nothing changed in that discussion in the last meeting. As I said, this topic by Ben, that is what we will be discussing today. And finally, I added, it was not added initially, but we ended up discussing this. So basically, I suggested to provide an stipend for mentors of Google Summer of Code that are not being paid full-time to contribute to the project. Of course, that is an optional stipend. So if someone that is being a mentor and don't like to receive it, so those funds can go to the project budget. So I introduced this topic. Initially, it was well received. And what I did is just start the voting process in the TSC repo. So, and this is the discussion. So we have 4 positive votes. So I think that we are still on time to get in more votes, but it seems that this is going to continue. Any comments so far regarding what we discussed the past week or specifically this topic? Okay, cool. Let's proceed with today's agenda. There was a comment added by Ben past week in the previous community working meeting, suggesting to get an update of the stable spec proposal that Greg and Jason have been working on. And after that comment, they published this discussion. So yeah, I think that is. I don't know, Ben, if you like to add something else, or maybe it's just time for Greg and Jason to share what is the current status, or what is pending, or next step, etc. So, all yours, guys.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to spend some time talking through this, I think it's helpful to be walked through some of the discussions like these to make sure they get the proper attention, and have that for the community to see as well, and for anybody who's interested as to what's going on and what's being talked about. So yeah, if there's nothing else in the agenda, definitely that's if you guys would like to do that, then that's a good time to do it.
All right, I'll take over. Let me share this. Okay. Not a fan that the video goes away, but okay. So, can everybody see my screen? Let's make it a little bit bigger. Is that better? Is that good?
Looks good, thank you.
Yeah, that's good.
So, Jason posted up his initial idea for the spec development lifecycle, probably a couple of years ago now. And through working through the details of how that's going to work, lots of discussions were opened. We had discussions kind of everywhere of various details from the very general idea that Jason had. So what I wanted to do, I think that part of the problem of it not gaining a lot of traction was that it wasn't a cohesive single concept that we could, in theory, just implement tomorrow if we wanted. So what I wanted to do is grab all of the various discussions that we had open and reconsolidate them back into just a single idea. And so I built this in a Google Doc and shared it with Jason, and he and I over the past couple months have kind of gone over it and made edits and various things. And then there are still a few open detail questions, but I've just listed those as threads. And while inconsequential is probably a bit more extreme than I would describe them, they are rather detail things and not major. So the major thing in the spec development lifecycle in this proposal is it's actually very similar to the way that we were doing it before, except that it doesn't involve IETF and it adds a version number. So we still get annual releases, as was Jason's proposal. But we're adding in a version number so that the version number can be incremented anytime that there's a breaking change. What that does is it kind of gives us a psychological wall to hit, because we don't want to increment that version number. We want to avoid incrementing that, which means that successive releases will be compatible. So if we can make a change that doesn't increment the version number, that's probably preferred. Releases will happen every year, and successive releases without breaking changes constitutes a version. I've got a list of some examples of changes within a version, some things that, and then also a couple things. Yeah, so I've got an example of non-functional changes and functional changes that could exist within a single version. Anything that's a breaking change is going to require us to bump the version number. One thing that we still need to do in order to support future compatibility is restrict unknown keywords. The reasoning is that if we allow unknown keywords, somebody could put in a foo into their schema, and then JSON schema could come in behind them and define what foo is, which may be incompatible with what they have in their schema. That's kind of the 10,000 foot level of why we can't allow unknown keywords. But what we've done is we've allowed this X dash prefix to define kind of a namespace for any custom annotations that people want. And implementations must refuse to process schemas that contain keywords they don't know. The meta schema, we will enforce the unknown keywords using an unevaluated properties false in the top level schema only, not in the vocabulary schemas. The custom annotation space, the X dash keywords, that will be enforced, and we can actually add that into the core vocabulary so that, and I'll come to this later, people making custom, people with custom keywords, sorry. It'll allow implementations that define custom keywords to do so and still support the unknown keywords thing. Experimental keywords, and I'll come back to this in a little bit. The experimental keywords will be added to the appropriate vocabulary with basically an empty schema, so no validation on the content of the keyword. And then there'll be a comment, a dollar comment keyword in there. that explains the keyword is experimental and where to find more information. And I'll come back to that in a little bit and explain why we're doing it that way. And then to support custom keywords, so rolling that back a little bit, vocabularies inarguably is an incomplete feature. So we're going to pull that out and put that into the feature lifecycle that I'll describe in a second. But in doing so, implementations still need a way to support custom keywords. So what Jason and I landed on there is that an implementation can support a custom keyword, but they need to provide a new top-level meta schema. And the way that they will do that is they'll reference the individual vocabulary meta schemas the way that the current top level does in an all of with references. And then they'll also add their whatever keywords that they're defining, and then they include a dynamic anchor meta, and that'll get that'll make all the meta schemas work together. They don't need to include vocabulary, the dollar vocabulary keyword, because as I mentioned, that's becoming an experimental feature. The other major thing that we're adding here is the feature lifecycle. And the purpose of this is to allow us to iterate on the feature lifecycle while defining it before it moves into a stable state that then becomes required to implement. The lifecycle consists of 6 stages: concept, proposal, experimentation, stable, deprecated, and removed. And we'll go through each of those stages. But here's a kind of a diagram that shows how the flow works. The concept is it starts with the life cycle starts with the concept, and so that's a GitHub issue being opened for the idea. Maybe the idea has already been discussed a little bit in Slack or in a discussion or something. But when a GitHub issue is opened in the spec repo for this idea, that's kind of when this life cycle begins. Within the concept phase, or within the concept stage, we will discuss various questions of the feature, like, is it a new concept completely, or does it just build on existing features? Is it kind of a syntax sugar kind of thing, something that's just a new way of doing something you can already do, or does it provide completely new functionality? And then also during this phase, so while that discussion is happening, the core team, anybody who has implementations, like myself and Jason, we will kind of do an internal kind of private prototype of the shape of the feature as being discussed and the various options, just to kind of get an idea of how easy it is to integrate this into an implementation and various questions like that. Once the concept has kind of landed on something, it can move on to a proposal, and a proposal will be a separate document that very precisely defines what the specification changes are going to be. It'll also update the meta schemas. So in order to allow for iteration on these experimental features, we can't define the keyword in the meta schema, because that definition may change over time as we go through this proposal and experimental process. And if it changes, then you could end up breaking implementations that haven't updated to the latest version of the proposal yet. So in order to not do that, we're adding the keyword into the vocabulary so that it's defined and so that it can be evaluated. But then we're just saying kind of anything goes as far as the meta schema is concerned. Implementations will be responsible for validating the shape of the keyword while it's in experimentation or while it's in a proposal experimentation phase. And then also we'll have, we need a place in the test suite for experimental features so that we can add tests for those. Once the proposal and once that is set up, then it's kind of an open door for any implementation to support these features. It's expected that we'll get feedback from implementers and tooling providers saying how easy it was, saying, you know, can you clarify this part of the text, that kind of stuff. And that'll feed back into the proposal where we'll modify it, take in that feedback, and then the experimental features will update in the implementations, and eventually that'll stabilize out. And you can kind of see that as the proposal and experimentation wrap around each other. Once the proposal and experimentation has kind of settled and we really have a good idea of the changes that we want to make, we can merge that into the main branch, and it will be released with the next release as a stable feature. The meta schema will update the meta schema to give it that final shape, and it'll be a required feature. The tests are moved from the experimental section into the main area for tests, which some of that we still have to work out. And then, of course, the specification text will be merged into the specs. And if we find that a feature isn't useful, it'll just stay unstable for however long we find it useful. If we find something isn't useful, like it's been replaced by, like we replaced recursive anchor and recursive ref with dynamic, then we can deprecate those features, and it'll just stay in deprecated. It's still required for implementations to support, but it's marked as deprecated. And then the last stage is removed. As we approach a release, we can decide if we have deprecated features and we want to make a breaking change, then we can remove those deprecated features. As I mentioned, we probably want to avoid making a breaking change and bumping that version number. So we could end up with deprecated features in the spec for a while. But you know, maybe eventually we'll have like after 5 years or so, I don't know. We can collect deprecated features if there's a bunch of them, and then just have like one change that removes them. There are some features that are in the spec currently that need to be extracted because they're incomplete or they're new. Property dependencies is a new keyword that we were looking at adding. It's new, so it needs to be added through this feature lifecycle. Vocabularies needs work, so it's going to go into the feature lifecycle as well. The output formats, we've had a lot of discussion, probably about a year or two ago, where we've realized that the output formats that I put in were really machine reader oriented. They're not very good for human readers. So what we're doing is we're pulling the format itself out of the specification and creating a new specification just for the output, and just for what's defined in the spec now. And then within the spec, we're just going to have a list of defined terms that the satellite output specs should use, just to kind of align them, and so that people know what each one is talking about. As far as implementation support goes, an implementation can say they support a feature or support a release if they support every feature in the release, or every stable feature. So if an implementation supports 2024 and only 3 of 4 features in 2025, then that implementation can say that it supports 2024. We actually had this issue a few months ago with VS Code, where their documentation said they support 2012 and they don't. So we made them change their documentation. Implementations are welcome to support proposals and experiments. We need to recognize that implementations are typically open source and hobby projects, and people don't have time necessarily to work on them as much as we would want. And especially even if they do support an experimental feature, the likelihood of them staying on the bleeding edge of that proposal probably isn't that high. So any implementation that is supporting a proposed feature and the schema isn't using the feature in a way that they recognize, they need to refuse to process that schema. That's pretty much everything. As I mentioned, there's not much changing as far as our process, except that we're adding a version number and the feature lifecycle. The unknown keywords thing is a thing that we're changing, and everything else is kind of fallout from those things. As I mentioned, I think I have 9 different questions. Like, do we want to use the word version, or is there some other word that we want to use? Metaschema URI, kind of a governance thing. We can use a proposal issue template. How do we know when a feature is ready to be promoted? If a proposal stalls, should we just remove it? Should we just like remove that keyword from the meta schema and that kind of thing? Do proposals need versions? So as the proposal is iterating, how does the implementation advertise that it supports whatever iteration that is? Can a deprecated feature become undeprecated? Can a removed keyword, so like we've removed recursive ref and recursive anchor, are those now completely off limits forever, or after some version that doesn't have them, can we add them back in? And then I think an incentive program for implementations to support experimental features would be really cool. So those are the questions that I have listed, and that's what we landed on.
I think it looks great. That's awesome. Wow. Oh man. I mean, I've been waiting for a while for something like this, but this looks really, really good. Thank you for putting it together.
Thank you for saying so.
Yeah, I thought the same when I saw the discussion, and thanks for the great presentation, Greg. My question is, sorry, go ahead.
There you go.
No. Go ahead, Ben. Let's first start with the celebration, and later I will go with the challenging questions.
Yeah, thank you for all the hard work in putting this together. I know it's been a lot of work, more than it may seem on the surface. So yeah, thank you for all that dedication and putting that together and working through those challenges and those discussions to produce this work. And thank you for presenting that now to give us a really good flavor of what we need to do next in terms of commenting on the various questions that have been raised as a result. But I think we're in a significantly better place than we were a little while ago. So yeah, thank you so much for that work and sharing it. I think it's really great. Looking forward to being able to use this.
Benha?
Yeah. So this looks amazing. In your mind, this question for both of you. So what are the ideal next steps from here? Ideal scenario.
Honestly, I don't know. I imagine we need to get something more formal than this written up and put into probably the spec repo root as just a file of this is how the spec is run. But yeah, we need to clarify those questions first.
And another question. So imagine that we have some weeks and we have more people joining the discussion. So maybe we have some adjustments and more good comments or improvements. And as soon as we make this step that you shared regarding putting this in a formal way in the spec repository, probably is this going to affect also the labels we are using for the triage process of issues or something? Or it's not necessarily, right? It's just we don't need to change processes physically that way, right?
No, this process is specifically how we develop the spec, develop and release the spec. I don't think it has impact on like issue governance and other things like that.
Cool. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And then sorry for I like on fire with comments. So next comment. Probably the documentation we already have for meta schemas, for example. As soon as we start preparing for this, or meta schema vocabularies, maybe better. So we will be working in improving the docs out there in the website, right? If this is going to moving forward, we are going to put emphasis on those extensibility features. So I should start planning midterm, long term for improving those docs, right?
Yeah, yeah, we'd probably start planning that stuff. I don't have any particular ideas on how to do that.
Step by step. So, but yeah, I think that. Sorry, Miguel, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I just have a hand up when you're done. Go ahead.
What I just going to share is we have an issue with the documentation strategy. This is an open issue with some releases. And actually, I have been moving and reprioritizing those releases as per the current progress of the website. So, and as soon as we start getting some momentum with this, probably just take a look to that issue. Take a look to that issue and think together, all of us together, to see what is the best order to put a first version of docs for those extensibility features. So, and we can start iterating. Just start with something basic that can help in the beginning, and depending on the feedback, because the good thing is we have this feedback component that is helping us to get immediate feedback, so we can just refining that. That's what I was thinking. Miguel.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me. So just two questions. So for example, do we have, I'm just curious, do we have any issues that qualify as, that can be put already into, could be considered concepts, like any old stuff, or are we starting from scratch? It's like, okay,
Yeah,
there's
so
some issue. Go ahead, sorry.
so I think I don't know about concept, but as I mentioned, we're pulling out where is it? Property dependencies. This one here. We're pulling out property dependencies. It's currently added to the spec, but it's a new keyword. So it hasn't been released yet. So that'll probably just be put directly into the process at the proposal stage.
Okay.
But we do need to figure out, we've made some work towards what a proposal might look like. But there was a difference of opinion, and we haven't resolved that yet. But we will have some kind of external document that is a proposal that implementations can take and say, okay, I'm going to support this experimental feature.
Okay. So then we have to, okay, so basically we wait until there's a template for a proposal, and then that'll kick off the new concepts, or et cetera. Okay, cool.
Right.
My other question was, so for example, let's say there's a change to the, like the way you're proposing, removing that keyword, et cetera. So the next version would be, of the spec would be 2024-1?
No. So in our meta schema, where's the schema? Oh, I put that down here in a question. So we're looking at possibly adding the version to the meta schema URI. So we'll actually have two URIs. One is the version, which is stable. So the version will include, it's kind of the latest release for that version. If you want a particular release, then you can go and add the year on it as well. But so it's not going to be like a 1.1 or a 1.2. It'll be a particular version, and then the year of the release after it. Now we don't have what the version might look like. It could be 1, 2, 3, or it could be something else. I don't know. But if 2025 or if 2024 is released with version 1, or it's not at this point, but if 2024 is released with version 1, and then 2025 doesn't have any breaking changes, it will also be version 1. But you don't say that, you just say it's the 2025 release.
Okay.
And then if we have a breaking change, we bump the version, so you'll have 2026.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's more like we'll have a release every year, and every release has a compatibility version associated with it.
Right. Okay. And so these one final questions. So these items here that I'm reading here in the issue, I guess, is this the voting thing?
It's
Can we
open
go-
to discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And just to be clear, the introducing breaking changes is something that we will avoid as much as we possibly can at this going forward.
Yeah.
Not true of the past, but going forward.
Yeah, we want to minimize bumping that version number. I think having the version number gives us something to visually see to say, oh, this is going to cause people pain. And so we want to minimize that as much as possible.
Yeah. Cool, thank you.
Thanks, Miguel. Good pack of questions. Any other question? Cool. We have the discussion. I'm going to share it again in the chat. So please, if you have more comments or thoughts, let's continue there. And I will try to push the discussion and promote it in Slack to see if we get more traction. Let's continue in the upcoming weeks to see what are the next steps. But yeah, as everyone said, congratulations. Let me share my screen to see if we have more topics added in the agenda in addition to this one. Let me make this bigger. This is the comment left by Egg Korkan that is working in Ericsson, if I'm not mistaken, Ben, in the, W3C Internet of Things or something like that. Ben, do you have better memory than me? So you have been speaking with him, right?
Yeah, that sounds right. We've had a few emails back and forth. We've had some emails recently and some longer ago. I think it is Ericsson. I'm not 100% sure offhand.
Okay. I'm going to write him a message tomorrow to see if he can he prefers to continue the discussion next week. Yeah. Let me see if I can get the exact question.
It sounds to me like he's wanting JSON schema to specify how a registry is done, maybe. But then,
Yeah.
so he's got like examples and test cases, which means documentation. So seems like he's got a lot of things going on in there.
Yeah. I attended a call which I mentioned a while back, where he was talking about some of the work he was doing in W3C, which is related to JSON schema. If I'm honest, I struggled to understand fully exactly what he was doing and how it connects to JSON schema and how he wanted to connect with us. So that's one of the reasons I invited him to come on the call, to introduce what he's doing, and talk about how he thinks we might connect, and see if anybody else wants to pick up those discussions. Yeah, hopefully he'll be able to make another calls.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah, I'll write him and roll this topic for the next week. And we don't have anything else in the agenda. So if you have something else in mind, this is the moment. Otherwise, we will end the meeting now. last chance. Okay, thanks everyone for making the time. I wish you all a great week, and let's continue the discussion. And as everyone said, Jason and Greg, amazing job. So we are excited with this. So yeah, let's continue moving the big stone. That is a big one. So take care. Have a good day.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.